Number 10. Explorer. Explorer is one of the elders of the universe, some of the oldest living beings and entities to have ever existed. Among them are some names that you may recognize, although you may have not known them to be elders of the universe, such as the Collector and Grandmaster. Explorer is believed to be one of the oldest beings belonging to the elders, and considers the other members of the team to be like his siblings. He is probably one of the most lesser known of the elders of the universe despite his immortality, and also one of the most mysterious. If he has a power set, we don't really know what it is, but like the other elders, as time goes on, the longer you survive, it seems the more powerful you become, whether or not you have superpowers. Wisdom and time strengthen you. Explorer has only appeared in a few issues of the comics, which is why he's likely so often forgotten in comparison to other members of the Elders of the Universe. Number 9. Origin. Origin is a super cool idea for a character. I love how many cool abstract entities we have like this in the Marvel Universe and the multiverse. Origin represents all the origins we have within the Marvel Universe of 616, seen as a being therefore of fate. Origin is believed to have been the one responsible for summoning the forces and events needed to come together in order to have granted and ordained mutants abilities from the moment of their conception and growth in the womb, created groups like Fantastic Four, and brought Thor and the Asgardians to Earth. Basically, if something in 616 has an origin, Origin probably played a role in that. They are constantly in battle with an entity known as the Unbeing, who has sought to undo what they have brought to pass. Origin first appeared in Quasar in issue number 18. What a neat and, of course, powerful concept. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it where we talk about some of the lesser known cosmic entities and gods of the Marvel Universe, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Black Winter. Black Winter is an entity that feels weird to me to have so low on this list, but at the same time, despite being a multiversal god-like cosmic being, they did recently get their metaphorical butt whooped by Thor in the comics. However, that's likely not the end of this cosmic entity, despite them appearing to have died there. There was a lot of foreshadowing that they brought with them when they appeared in the first story arc of Donny Cates' current 2020 Thor series. The Black Winter was formerly known as the Creeping Plague in the comics when they first appeared, but over many years revealed themselves more fully in the comics, being known by the name of Black Winter, as they generate a dark eldritch snowfall which can destroy anything that its flakes come into contact with. Pretty fitting name, I think. Pretty powerful entity. But still, no match for power cosmic amped up Thor, who drained Galactus of all his power, seemingly killing him in order to destroy this threat. Yeah, Thor OP. If Thor was someone that we didn't know about, he would be a great person for this list. But as I said, we all know Thor, right? Who doesn't know Thor? If you don't know Thor, I don't know, you don't know Marvel at this point. That's something you gotta know. Number 7. Icarus. I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention one Eternal on this list. Eternals are known for their immortality. I mean, it's kinda in the name. Eternal. We call them eternal because they are. They have lived on Earth for 1 million years at this point or more, Icarus included. They are beings who were created by the Celestials, but whose purpose remained a great mystery in the comics for a long time. Initially though, it seemed that the Celestials had created them to kind of be Earth's heroes, but also because they kind of enjoyed messing with species on other worlds, which was exactly what they were doing with humanity when they created both the Eternals and their initial sworn enemies, the Deviants. Icarus, like himself, is often thought of as being the Superman equivalent of the group. Icarus is well known for his durability, strength, flight, and energy manipulation and energy beams, including heat vision as a form of. Icarus is strong enough to take on Thanos one-on-one and also possesses the ability to heal himself. Like other Eternals, he also has the capability to teleport, though he actually prefers not to do that, and he possesses low-level psionic abilities that allow him to communicate telepathically, as well as more advanced telekinetic abilities. Number 6. Supergirl. Like her cousin Kal-El, Supergirl is often perceived as being basically immortal. In Future State, we saw an alternate future where Kara left Earth and lived well into the future. At the end of her Future State limited series, Kara Zor-El Superwoman, Supergirl did inevitably die, but we don't really know what from. It could have eventually been that she succumbed to old age after living well into the future and beyond, or it could be that she died protecting the Eternal Garden and community there that she created and had fostered. I would err on the side of the latter just because of how immortal Kara already seemed in that series. And that's not the only alternate reality where we've seen Kryptonians living well into the future, virtually untouched by age. There have been countless other realities, including that of DC 1 million, where we've seen heroes like Superman live well beyond normal years, becoming basically a sun-powered god. So if this is true for Clark based on his physiology, it must also be a possibility for Kara as well. Number 5. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is still a woman that can be killed, but she has also been known as a demigod in the comics before, with one origin for her making her the daughter of Hippolyta, the Queen of Amazons, and Zeus, a god of Olympus. Really, the god of Olympus. More recently, during the events of Dark Knight's death metal, Diana was also raised up to become an omnipotent god amidst the stars, transcended into an otherworldly being and leaving our earthly plane behind, at least for a while. Diana would get a glimpse into a potential future, giving us the Future State line, world, and event. Wonder Woman is known for being one of the fiercest and strongest fighters amongst the Amazons and in the world of DC besides. Number 4. Cersei. Probably one of the most powerful Eternals around, and definitely one of the few with the greatest staying power in the comics, is Cersei. So she's not only immortal as an Eternal, but also immortal in terms of her appearance in the comics. Cersei is introduced to us as one of the members of the Eternals who most loves humanity in the MCU film Eternals, and the same can be said for her in the comics. There she is also known as one of the most sociable Eternals, who also appreciates a really good party. In fact, when she was tricked into believing she was human, this was kind of what her whole world centered around. She became like all about parties. When it comes to her power levels, Cersei is often seen as specializing in the power of transmutation. In the comics, this has never been restricted to non-organic matter either, and also gives Cersei the power to heal. As an Eternal, she not only possesses this power, but also has complete control over every molecule of her being, making her quite durable and quite hard to kill. Even when Eternals are killed as well, they're resurrected, meaning they can never really die. Not only that, but Cersei can fly, teleport, and has super strength, and is telepathic and telekinetic. She's really got a lot of powers. Like most Eternals. That is something that I feel like we didn't really see in the movie, but in the comics, they're all pretty OP. Number 3. Hulk. Hulk is definitely one of the most powerful heroes around in Marvel Comics. Often he is well known for his massive amount of strength and ability to smash or destroy just about anything he sets his mind to wrecking. Lately, however, we saw a deep dive into the character of the Hulk and Bruce Banner, who are also often described as being two separate beings kind of sharing one existence. In Immortal Hulk, we also learn not only that Hulk is extremely complex, but also that he's, well, you may have guessed it, immortal. Granted, this very revelation was something pulled from his original origin, where it was initially explained that at night the Hulk would basically take over, and because of this, whenever night fell, if Bruce Banner had been killed, then Hulk would be resurrected, bringing Bruce back with him. If you are a Hulk fan and you haven't yet read Immortal Hulk, by the way, it's definitely a must read, so go do that. And you'll see what I'm talking about with all this immortal stuff. If you didn't already know, because I feel like, if you've been a Hulk fan for a long time, then you probably were like, I mean, it makes sense. Number 2. Jean Grey. Jean has died a lot, and I mean a lot, and yet she always comes back. If that isn't immortality, I do not know what is. Even when she has been dead for years, she still returns. A big part of what makes her so indestructible is how much the Phoenix Force loves her and often sees her as its preferred host. I guess except for the whole Phoenix tournament thing, that really threw my whole understanding of the Jean-Phoenix connection for a loop. As a superhero, Jean is one of the most powerful around, but often chooses to show restraint when it comes to her abilities unless she is really needed to set things right. She's just kinda too OP as well. She is an Omega level telepath and an extremely powerful telekinetic. Number 1. Superman. One of the most immortal of the immortals out there, and one of the most powerful, is Superman, who has been established as immortal as long as he's under a yellow sun. Granted, his immortality is a little bit conditional, but when it comes to being a powerhouse, Superman is undisputedly one of the best and most established in comics today. I mean, they kinda had to nail down his powers and give him weaknesses to make his struggles more grounded. That's how unstoppable he initially was, back when his superpowers were basically whatever he needed them to be in order to save the day and solve problems. Superman has also died before, but has pretty much always come back, and following the death of Superman, we also learned that due to Kryptonian technology, even this publicized and sensationalized death would most definitely not be a permanent thing. A very powerful factor that Superman also possesses when it comes to his immortality is how popular he is, evidently. So it'd be really hard to kill Superman because we'd all be like, no! No one would accept it. We'd all be like, just tearing our hair out and beating our chest would be like unacceptable.
Kicking off the list at number 10, The Flash. Of course, this one is epic, we gotta start with it. In part 1 of this list, we talked about when Batman sat upon the Mobius chair, so it's only fair if we take a look at Barry Allen's fun little upgrade in Darkseid War Chapter 4, The Death of Darkseid. Now this is when Darkseid's daughter Grail summons the Anti-Monitor to go toe-to-toe with Big Guns himself. So Darkseid summoned the Black Racer in retaliation, but when the Anti-Monitor stripped the Racer of Darkseid's control, it was then merged with Barry Allen, which is quite the combination. And then after that point, he was able to take on Darkseid a little easier, to say the least. Number 9, Doctor Strange. When we're talking about superheroes becoming a god, Doctor Strange wouldn't be far off that description as it is. I mean, he's quite cosmic as it is, but in Doctor Strange issue 385, the Sorcerer Supreme lost the mantle to, well, Loki. Loki's tricks made Stephen hand over his magical possessions and the Sanctum Sanctorum, everything that belonged to him that made him special. He was like, bye, gotta go. So Strange had to become a veterinarian, just a total career flip, which is great. So then Strange had to break into Asgard, find the World Tree, and then once he was there, Strange had to make an offering, and the tree opened his third eye, so he found what needed to be done. He had to make an offering, a sacrifice really, so he grabbed Bats, his dog, who Loki kind of already took care of, and then Strange felt nothing like before. He felt more magic than he's ever known. And after this point, Strange says he can see everything because he is everything. He is a god of magic. Kind of like David Blaine. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be great. You're the best. Thank you so much for your support. Now let's get right back into this list. No more wasted time. Number 8, Batman. Okay, back in 1994, best year ever, comic book fans were delighted when the Elseworld storylines were launched. Now there was one shot that had Bruce Wayne become a Green Lantern, and it was pretty epic. A couple times superheroes become lanterns, and I'm gonna count them as a god for a few of them because, well, you can't really argue it too much. Batman in Darkest Night finds Bruce Wayne starting his path as the Caped Crusader, but that's when Abin Sur crashes down to Earth, and that ring that once belonged to him has to find a suitable replacement. Now it ended up finding Bruce Wayne instead of Hal Jordan. And he looks great as a lantern. I mean, honestly, his skills already mixed with his new ability makes him unstoppable, really. I mean, Bruce wasn't the only one to acquire a ring also. The Rogue Lantern, Sinestro, merged with Joe Chill, the guy who was responsible for the death of Bruce's parents. So the stakes are high, the punches are hard, it's a good time. If you haven't checked out Batman in Darkest Night, I suggest you do it. Especially if you're looking for more Batman, godly type comics. That's the way to go.
Number 7, we've got Anti-Monitor. Yes, this villain appears a lot on these powerful villain super lists, but I couldn't ignore him on this one even if I tried. His influence in the comics is immense, but what places him in this list is primarily his near infinite age. This guy was born in the early days of the cosmos, lived for over 9 billion years in a dormant state, and even fought a battle with his counterpart, Monitor, for 1 million years. It's hard enough for most beings to live that long, let alone be in a constant battle the whole time. And on top of all this, he's also just proven to be nearly impossible to kill. Even when he's vanquished for good, he isn't really killed, but instead broken up into molecules and scattered through the universe. And he had to be punched into a star to make that happen. By Superman from Earth 2, with the help of Darkseid, Superboy Prime, Dr. Light, and heroic Lex Luthor. So I'd argue that Anti-Monitor definitely deserves a spot on this list. Number 6 on our list goes to the one and only Kang the Conqueror. This villain is so powerful that he's able to change the course of history with little to no effort. His ability to traverse through time gives him supreme insight and also the capability to appear in any time in the history of our universe, future, past, and present. He's a real contender for this list because although he's been defeated in the past, he was really only in a state of limbo, and he never truly meets a final end. I mean, he's able to not only design the outcome of reality in most cases, but also just exist in any time he'd like. He once lived in ancient Egypt, and also the turn of the 20th century. The point is, Kang shows time and time again that he's capable of existing in multiple times throughout history, which I would argue could be a form of immortality. As Schrodinger's logic would go, Kang has and hasn't existed at every moment in history and the future. It would just be up to us to observe him, and well, good luck with that. Alright, at number 5, I'm putting Dormammu. Am I pronouncing that right? Another villain who's been around for countless millennia, possibly even millions of years. Dormammu proves to be powerful enough and durable enough to possibly be considered immortal. One piece of evidence is his clash with Agamotto, a spawn of one of the elder gods where Dormammu actually held his own. And for those of you who don't know, Agamotto easily contended against Galactus himself. And if that wasn't enough to suggest Dormammu's potential for immortality, he's also immune to aging and harm of any kind, physical or mystical. His powers have also been used for resurrection in the past, so it's fair to say that stopping this guy will be tough, and arguably won't be permanent in any case. Okay, at number 4, we're looking at Surtur, the 1,000-foot tall fire giant who can move stuff with his mind. Surtur was the sworn enemy of Odin and Thor and eventually destroys Asgard. At a few points, Surtur is imprisoned and banished, but never completely destroyed. Even after one of these instances where Surtur was transported to the Sea of Eternal Light and frozen for all time, he still re-emerges after a Norwegian guy named Sven finds a medallion with connections to Surtur, and subsequently turns into him. Thank you so much, Sven. And once again, when he's finally defeated by the Asgardians, he isn't really, since he just finds himself resurrected in a realm called Muspelheim. There's one instance where he's then beheaded by the Twilight Sword, another where he's basically destroyed by Odin who steals the Eternal Flame from him, but based on his track record, I'm not buying that any of these instances are the last of him. We're in the top 3, folks, and at number 3 we have none other than Thanos. I know, yes, in the movies he was beheaded, but many argue that this isn't the end of him. Thanos is an ancient Eternal who was born on the planet Titan to his father Alars, also an Eternal. So, this dates Thanos back about 1,000,000 years, and Thanos himself is an Eternal, meaning we can at least deduct that he's immune to all disease and aging. In fact, Thanos was specifically banned by death from his realm, meaning it's almost confirmed that he can't be killed. So yeah, in the movie, spoiler alert, should have said that by now, we all saw him die. But by the laws of this character's storyline, this won't be the last we see of Thanos, no matter how severe the injury appears to be. Number 2, we've got the insatiable Galactus. This bad guy is hardly a villain anymore and more like a floating entity that feeds on the energy of life forms. Interdimensional and one of the oldest known beings to ever exist, Galactus always finds a way to bring evil to the cosmos. Even in his apparent death, he was replaced by Abraxas, who basically took over in his absence. As much as Galactus is able to endure, and despite his nearly infinite age, there are instances where he's weakened and put into submissive positions by other forces in the cosmos. The closest he comes to truly dying is when Thor and Galactus' attempted assault on the Black Winter goes horribly wrong and Thor turns on him, leaving him on the brink of death. A little too late, I'd say, considering you just let him consume 5 planets, Thor, but also good on you for killing Galactus sooner or later. But does Galactus ever die? Not really. Let's just hope that Abraxas doesn't come back again while he's gone. We don't want that. That guy's no good either. At number 1, we have the Goblin Entity. This being was created at the point of the Big Bang, so one of the oldest on our list for sure. That said, the power of this villain has sustained over billions of years, and just like Galactus, it is driven by its insatiable hunger for energy. It's basically a giant, dark entity that moves through the cosmos, ingesting everything in its way. It is confirmed that the Goblin Entity cannot die, and if it were to be killed, similarly to everyone else on this list, it would find a way to regenerate. It seems what we're dealing with in this top 10 is a group of villains that just won't stop, no matter how hard you try to defeat them. But perhaps by exploring the villains with potential immortality, we're also exploring the deepest depths of true metaphorical evil found in the DC and Marvel universes, in that in the real world as well, evil does always find its way back into the world, and all that can be done about it is temporary. Although those moments are sweet, where good wins, it's not long before we have to prepare for evil to return and rear its ugly head again.
In its 10th Moon Knight, Mark Spector is better known as the vigilante Moon Knight. Once a mercenary, Mark Spector was left for dead in the desert, where he was revived by the moon god Khonshu. Appointed Khonshu's first and high priest, Moon Knight enacts justice to protect those who travel at night. Spectre also suffers from dissociative identity disorder, which has paved the way for his use of other identities, including millionaire Stephen Grant, and cab driver Jake Lockley. Since the early days, Mark has mostly worked alone, but he's also been a member of a few superhero teams, including the Avengers and Heroes for Hire. Recently, Mark discovered that he had a daughter named Beatrice with his longtime lover Marlene Arlone. But when Khonshu sensed Mephisto's plans for world domination, Mark left her to fight by his god's side and prevent that from coming true. When Khonshu succumbed to madness, however, Mark had to turn against him and help the Avengers defeat him. However, whenever Moon Knight would end up dying, Khonshu would just bring him back to life. So yeah, in essence, he's immortal. And at 9, elongated man. As his name suggests, the elongated man can stretch his limbs and body to superhuman lengths and sizes. There seems to be no limit to how far or wide he can stretch, but it's more difficult to control this ability the further he's actually stretched out. However, this also allows him to absorb bullets and then even just shoot them back by tightening his skin. He can also contort his body into various positions and sizes impossible for ordinary humans, such as being entirely flat so that he can slip under a door, or using his fingers to pick a conventional locks. He can also use it for a disguise by changing the shape of his face, although this is painful and difficult for him. But being able to stretch and move your body at will could also potentially allow you to stretch your life for longer than it should be. I mean, like, if his heart is giving out, theoretically Ralph can just like force his heart to keep pumping by literally doing it himself, right? He can like shrink his heart and make it pump, right? So like it is partially possible, or at least there is a slight chance that he could be immortal, which is after all what this list is all about. It might be immortal, right? And at 8, Ghost Rider. Jonathan Johnny Blaze, aka Ghost Rider, is an American motorcycle stunt performer and entertainer turned spirit of vengeance. He was the son of famed stuntman Barton Blaze, who tragically died during a stunt. He became bound to Zarthos and the spirit of vengeance after making a deal with the demon Mephisto to spare the life of his surrogate father, Crash Simpson. Now, with the power to control hellfire and to inflict pain on those deemed evil with his penance stare, Blaze seeks vengeance, riding his hell cycle as the Ghost Rider. But like, being the spirit of vengeance, being in debt to Mephisto kinda makes you pretty immortal in my book. Like, in human form, Johnny has no possession of any superhuman powers or supernatural capabilities, but as Ghost Rider, he's the supernatural combination between experienced motorcyclist and Zarthos. As the Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze possesses a variety of supernatural powers at his disposal. However, any weapon crafted from heaven or like blessed can mutilate the Ghost Rider, which is the only way to decapitate and kill a spirit of vengeance. So without that, he's immortal.
Number 7, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman definitely toes the line between God and not God. She is empowered by the gods and communicates and even does battle with them on the regs, even becoming the god of war at one point recently. But she has been elevated beyond even that level of power. When Diana was empowered with the World Forge and the anti-crisis energy at the end of Doom War / during Death Metal, she had enough power to shake stars and phase throughout time through sheer strength. She had displayed the ability to shrink an entire planet and was able to link everyone together and restore their memories as one history, as in all of DC's continuity, making it really confusing. She has cosmic awareness. She's able to see multiple events during the war against the Batman Who Laughs at once, as well as precognition and retrocognition. She was a crazy powerful character for that time. Number 6, Batman. Batman's godlike abilities came fittingly in the form of him becoming the god of knowledge. Bruce has obviously always used his cunning to even the odds between him and far more powerful foes, like Darkseid as an example. So his mind really is his best weapon, and in this form it was likely one of the most deadly weapons in the universe. Metron, the god of knowledge, has his position usurped by Batman when he is pulled off of the Mobius chair by Wonder Woman. Now Bruce takes the title for himself by waltzing up and sitting his cape buttocks upon the Mobius chair, granting him with the answer to any question that interests him, plus teleportation and basically omniscience. His first question is to validate that it really was Joe Chill who killed his parents. 'Twas, and he torments him. And his second question was about the true identity of the Joker, which led us to the insane realization that there are actually 3 Jokers. Number 5, Beta Ray Bill. If you don't know who Beta Ray Bill is, you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, yo. He did not just happen to pick up the hammer of Thor, Mjolnir, being the first person canonically to do so, but he even beat up Thor in a mano-a-mano combat to claim ownership of said hammer. Despite his utterly monstrous appearance, Bill was actually a pretty swell guy, and quite the friendly hero, definitely worthy of the title of a god. He was so kind that even after beating Thor a second time to decide who would keep the hammer, he gave it up and let the young god keep his weapon. Odin was so impressed by this display of humility and honor that he had a hammer especially made for Bill that had the same properties as Mjolnir, granting him the ability to become a god of thunder just like Thor, but more horse-like. Number 4, the Flash. The Flash became something that no mortal can outrun: death. Well, actually I should say, Barry became bonded with the Black Racer and basically killed Darkseid, and then he basically became the god of death. But Barry doesn't really want that kind of life, so he tries tries to outrace Death and all the things that Death affects. Now Death shows Barry a vision of his mother's demise and basically explains that that kind of thing is a part of life, that the deaths of others, even those we love, shape who we become. But Barry still resists somewhat when he's ordered to reap Iris West, and Barry tries to fight the Black Racer. Now the only problem is that Barry soon realizes that without a Black Racer, every single person on Earth will pass away. There needs to be a Black Racer to keep things like that in check, and he accepts his new role as the God of Death. Number 3. Shazam. Shazam was already imbued with the power of various gods, placing him well above the ability of any other mortal. But after the death of Darkseid, he didn't just become a deity of any single attribute. He was the deity of deities when he was given the title the God of Gods. The mythos of Shazam has always been that his name is made up of the first letter of the 6 gods who fuel his abilities. So that's Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. As Shazam takes on his new title as God of Gods, 6 new gods, whose initials conveniently spell out his name still, give Shazam new powers. Strength from Siva, the fire, death, and recreation from Hronmir, clairvoyance, war tactics, memorization, and divine grace from Anapel, the power boost and dimensional travel of Zanuz, aka Yuga Khan, willpower, immortality, and indestructibility of 8, and the magic of Mamaragan. This is both one of his most powerful and most recent forms. Number 2. Spawn. The 2 eternal brothers of God and the devil had and have power far beyond any mortal could ever hope to achieve. Because of that, when they decide they don't agree on certain things and go to war, it causes quite the ruckus. And of course, they choose Earth as their battleground. The mother, who is like their mother, needs to put this to an end and calls upon Spawn to do it. In order for Spawn to end their little squabble that made its way to Earth, he had to get a wee power boost. Actually, it's more like a god-sized power boost. The mother tasked Spawn with eating the forbidden fruit to grant him a kind of godhood. And in this new form, Spawn wipes out all the forces of both heaven and hell. Yes, God and Satan eventually do defeat him, but Spawn is soon resurrected and uses his powers to lock away the brothers and resurrect all the mortals who were killed in their war. Number 1. Jean Grey. Jean was far from a goddess in the beginning, but after her death in Uncanny X-Men number 101, she was resurrected as the powerful Phoenix. New costume, new power upgrade, and a far more important role in the X-Men storylines. Over the next few years, Chris Claremont revealed the power of the Phoenix was a cosmic entity representing life that latched onto Jean's psyche. It began corrupting her, culminating in the Dark Phoenix Saga, one of the most famous storylines in comic books, and it saw Jean rise to unimaginable power. Enough power that she consumed a star and killed a planet as a result. Realizing just how dangerous she was, Jean took her own life in the legendary Uncanny X-Men number 137 in 1980. She has been in and out of life ever since, and in and out of the Phoenix part as well. It's extremely confusing, but she gains godlike powers every time the Phoenix come back to play. Number 10. Iron Man. After Iron Man is imbued with the power cosmic, he becomes the Iron God, and one of the first things he does is do battle with Korvac, who is also similarly cosmically powered. From the get-go, we know Iron Man is beyond powerful, since him and Korvac are tossing moons and planets at one another during their fight. That is, until the cosmic entities show up and stop the fight, take Korvac away, and let Tony go off to see what he does with all this power. Iron God's goal is to make the world into a paradise, to fix all of its problems. Tony can use his cosmic powers to do whatever he wants, and since all of his ideas for helping the world were trapped in his mind, he decides to share his intellect and ideas with the entire population of New York, making Mr. Fantastic more dumb in the process. It doesn't do a heck of a lot except stop a couple's argument, get a kid at a baseball game to talk about background radiation, and get the villain Big Wheel to decide to solve traffic issues using quantum mechanics. But Tony's brash way of thinking led some other heroes to turn on him. Number 9. Green Lantern. Kyle Rayner. One of the most powerful Green Lanterns. With the power of Ion, he's resurrected the Guardians of the Universe. But what do you know, he became even more powerful. During the New 52, blue, red, yellow, indigo, and violet rings show up and claim him as their user, with the orange ring eventually doing the same, making him the only individual who has ever harnessed every ring of the emotional spectrum. After a while of struggling to balance this power, he does eventually gain mastery over every ring and becomes the White Lantern. Green gives him the ability to make hard-like constructs, only limited by his comic book artist imagination. The yellow ring allows him to sense the fears of his opponents. He can use the caustic red plasma of the Red Lanterns, he can teleport like the Indigo Tribe, and cause others to experience love, which is the Star Sapphire power. The blue ring allows him to instill hope in others, and the final orange ring allows him to create members of his Lantern Corps out of hard light. He can heal injuries, phase through objects, be invisible, create force fields, super speed flight, and energy blasts. He also gains the ability to rewrite reality and becomes omnipotent when he travels beyond the Source Wall. Number 8. Hercules. Hercules is an incredibly powerful Olympian who is on par with, if not stronger than, Thor. But one of his most powerful moments was during the events of Chaos War when the Chaos King attacked. Amadeus Cho uses ancient artifacts to become a god, but since he is a mere mortal, he can't handle it and transfers the powers to Hercules instead, making Hercules like a double god. But with this power, Hercules is able to fly, teleport, and release energy from his hands and eyes. His strength was amped up to ridiculous levels, and he was even able to win a confrontation with the Council of Godheads. He could summon Galactus and Eternity to him against their will, and defeated Zeus, who just beat up Galactus. He could give others powers too, giving all the heroes the power of flight. He could grow to the size of a planet to fight the Chaos King with his fists, eventually defeating him, and to close out the story, Hercules used his power to undo all of the crazy stuff that the Chaos King did, and then he became mortal again.
Number 7. Cosmic Spider-Man. Of course, we gotta use this guy. Cosmic Spider-Man, aka Captain Universe, is one of the most powerful versions of the Web Slinger. Cosmic Spidey went toe-to-toe with Rune King Thor and beat him. He was like, no problem, I can do it again. Cosmic Spider-Man isn't from our Earth, he's actually from Earth 13. That's where he retains the power of the Enigma Force, and he first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, Issue 9. Now Cosmic Spidey can't leave his universe or else, well, he would lose the Enigma Force. That's why the resistance of spider heroes always goes to Earth 13. They're like, hey, don't leave, we need you with the powers, we'll come to your house. It's kind of like when your friend's on house arrest and you're like, you know what, we'll come to your place tonight. You know, those scenarios that we're all in? What a weird example. He meets his demise only a couple issues later, but it was fun while it lasted. When the Inheritors were hunting down Spider-Man, their leader Solus drained the Enigma Force from Peter, but we can find more of him in What If Volume 2, Issue 31, titled What If Spider-Man Had Kept Those Cosmic Powers. You see the best of both worlds, Miley Cyrus style. Number 6. Black Widow. In What If Age of Ultron, Issue 3, one of our timelines gets a little messy. See, the Midgard Serpent took down all of the Avengers. It was just wreaking havoc, and it killed them all. Well, I mean, mostly all of them. See, Thor bites the bullet during this battle, which leads to Ragnarok, and then everybody who has superpowers is just not around anymore. It's bad. So a whole month goes by with Natasha and the team trying to stay alive, battling every day. Then eventually, Natasha comes up with her own little secret side quest. Mjolnir is in the same spot as it was before, obviously. So while the team is going forward with their own plan of blasting every weapon that they have at the Serpent, Natasha sneaks off, reaches out for Mjolnir, reminds the team that they're a bunch of regular humans fighting a god's war, and then seconds later becomes a god herself. The old Serpent situation was a little easier to handle after that. I gotta say, Natasha looks pretty good with the hammer. Looks pretty, she could probably kill a lot of people with that. Number 5, the Golden Oldie. Okay, now hear me out. I know Aunt May can't swing building to building like Peter. She wasn't a hero before, technically, but she was one in Marvel Team Up 134, in many ways. See, it's Aunt May, Franklin Richards, and Galactus. The classic trio. After Nova died due to his lack of energy, Galactus came to our rock in space and asked for Reed Richards to help out. Well, rather, he finds Franklin Richards and picks him as the new Herald. But Aunt May steps in front of him to prevent this from happening, so I'm gonna say that this moment right here, this regular human saving the day, Aunt May, she is now a hero. It's decided, now she's a hero. And then page 12 and 13, just seconds later, she becomes the Golden Oldie, which already sounds epic. But then when Aunt May finds out from Franklin that Galactus has a thing for Twinkies, the new Herald of Galactus, Golden Oldie Aunt May, searches the universe far and wide until she finds the best planet in the world, the Twinkie planet. So yummy. Which is a much more delicious planet for Galactus when it comes to feeding time. So she saved the day and also the planet. Way to go, Aunt May. Number 4, Captain America. Yeah, I should probably mention this one, seeing that I almost choked on my peanut M&Ms when it happened. Captain America, Tony Stark, and Thor. The big three are going toe-to-toe with Thanos and Avengers Endgame in the 3rd act. Now, the odds aren't looking good at this time. All the snapped heroes haven't really returned yet, so it's still looking not good. Tony is unconscious, Thor is about to get his own axe through his chest, and then Steve hucks Mjolnir at Thanos, and then the theater went nuts. Cap plus the Hammer of the Gods equals really fun CGI, a lot of good CGI. Cap lifted Mjolnir back in the late 80s in Thor 390, titled The Hero and the Hammer, so it's happened once before. But when Cap had the hammer, he didn't really enjoy the powers of a god. He said they were intoxicating, sure, but it belonged to Thor, so he quickly tossed it back to its rightful owner. What a gem. But those 6 guys got smoked by Cap with the hammer in that initial pull. Like, as soon as he picked it up, those 6 guys are like, that was crazy. Iron Man was actually the first to lift the hammer back in Avengers 122, back in the mid-70s. But then the hammer rules were a little bit different. You see, you could lift the hammer if you were in space, and you could lift it if Thor was also lifting it at the same time, but like, it doesn't really count. It's like when your little brother plays a game with you, but the controller's not plugged in. It's like, it looks cool, but you're not doing much. Number 3, Barry Allen. Making his first debut in Showcase issue 4 way back in the 1950s, Barry Allen, aka The Flash, aka the fastest man alive, has been a founding member of the Justice League, and after an experiment gave him super speed, he's been saving the day at blink and you'll miss it speeds. But then during the events of Blackest Night, Barry is being targeted by a black ring and is forced to get out of there, or else, you know, he joined the others as a Black Lantern. And then in issue 2 of Blackest Night, The Flash, Barry, is chosen to be the wielder of the blue power ring of hope, which adds to the super speed stuff quite a bit. So now he has the ability to heal other lanterns, and now he could even fly on top of his speed, which is pretty new for Barry. His imagination is only the limit here when it comes to powers, and he ends up partnering with fellow Blue Lantern Saint Walker in order to save Barry's grandson, Bart Allen. So it really works out for the best. They kind of kill it. Number 2, Mr. Fantastic. Since the early Fantastic Four days back in the 60s, Reed Richards has been known to be the stretchy smart guy, right? Now, in fact, he's considered one of the smartest people on Earth. He's a polymath who has mastered all of the sciences, be it electrical, chemistry, physics, aerospace engineering, that's a big one. But after the events of Secret Wars, Reed got an even bigger advantage when he convinced Molecule Man to strip Dr. Doom of his powers and instead give Reed the Omega upgrade. So after this, Mr. Fantastic was able to destroy Battleworld, rebuild Earth 616, and also bring his family back from the dead. Must be nice, that's pretty sick. And finally, number 1, Superman. Yeah, whenever the Man of Steel gets another upgrade, it's bound to be pretty impressive, even closer to God level. Now, I know he was already a god before, kind of with his powers, but it just gets even better. Before Darkseid and the Anti-Monitor went against each other in Darkseid War, Superman and Lex were taken to Apokolips, which was a mess, of course. And on top of that, there wasn't a sun in the sky, so Superman was getting to that 20% battery notification pretty quickly. Things aren't looking hopeful. He's losing his powers, it's not looking great. Lex had this brilliant last resort idea where Superman would fly down into the planet because it's filled with sun fire. Sure, not a bad call at all. But what ends up happening is far greater than they expected. The dark energy charged Superman back up, but it also turned him into a negative version. Not like, you know, he was sad, he didn't listen to like Evanescence and stuff, but he was the god of strength now, and also his morals just went out the window, so it made for a pretty entertaining ride. It was a nice change.
Coming in at number 10, we have Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. One of America's very first superheroes in the Marvel Universe during the Second World War, Steve Rogers is notorious for dodging certain death after surviving his plane crashing into the frozen Atlantic Ocean through suspended animation. Even since becoming a modern hero, however, Cap still can't seem to stay dead, with the occasion where he seemed to be assassinated by Crossbones actually resulting in his consciousness traveling through time. An inconvenient misadventure, but certainly less permanent than death. And given the fact that the Super Soldier Serum also seems to at least drastically slow Steve's aging, and Captain America just might be more immortal than you'd think. Coming in at number 9, we have Alec Holland, aka the Swamp Thing. The being that now calls itself Alec Holland is in reality the Avatar of the Green, an immortal being dedicated to protecting all nature and plant life on planet Earth. that absorb the memories and consciousness of a man named Alec Holland after a tragic chemical explosion in the swamps of Louisiana. As long as there exists some form of plant life on Earth, the Swamp Thing can regrow his body from this plant and transfer his consciousness, essentially ensuring that there'll always be an Avatar of the Green protecting Earth, and that the memory of Alec Holland will truly never ever die. Coming in at number 8, we have Jean Grey, aka the Dark Phoenix. An X-Men storyline and character turn so iconic that they've tried turning it into a movie on 2 separate occasions, Jean Grey has long been one of the ideal hosts of the Phoenix Force, a fiery power that's one of the oldest in the Marvel Universe. This incredible force is capable of healing any injury that Jean receives, and is even capable of resurrecting her entirely if she's killed by unnatural means. Combined with her natural mutant abilities already making her one of the most powerful telepaths in the entire Marvel Universe, potentially rivaling even those of Professor X, and Jean Grey will be one of the most important mutants for many, many ages to come.
In at 7, Supergirl. Last part, Josh talked about how Superman was basically unkillable ever since the Death of Superman comic event, since he hadn't really been killed by Doomsday and instead was placed in Kryptonian stasis until he was able to be healed enough to return to being a superhero. However, the same thing can be said about Supergirl, okay? Kara Zor-El, Kal-El's older cousin who got sucked through a wormhole, making her quite a bit younger than her cousin when she got to Earth. Despite this, okay, Kal and Kara have the same Kryptonian ancestry, making them equals. So if Superman is basically unkillable at this point, so is Supergirl. It's just basic math, or like weird comic book genetics math. Since he equals her, they would both be deemed unkillable or immortal. And I think that that's fairly cut and dry. Like obviously they can be killed, but so can basically everyone on this list, okay? So let's just cut the semantics and just like ignore the nuance. I just said that to a YouTube comments section. Wonder how effective that's gonna be. And at 6, Spider-Man. First officially referenced in 2005's official Handbook of the Marvel Universe, Alternate Universes 2005 number 1, the sliding time scales is an attempt to quantify the passage of time in Earth 616 so that the characters don't age noticeably. Earth 616 featuring a sliding time scale means that rather than being fixed to any date in history, the modern era, which starts with the events of Fantastic Four number 1 and continues to the present, continuously slides forward in time. This period is roughly 13 years, which means that at any time in the present, the space flight that gave birth to the Fantastic Four always happened around 13-14 years ago, meaning that basically everyone in the Marvel Universe can't die of old age. Meaning that while stories like Spider-Man Reign, among others, take place in a time where Spider-Man is old, his main 616 version is pretty damn immortal, especially because he's Marvel's most popular superhero, which means that this man has like a death grip on Marvel so hard that they cannot physically let him go. Halfway through into number 5, Wonder Woman. The Dark Knight's death metal story wrapped up early 2021 with issue number 7. And in that issue, and the issue before, we see Wonder Woman at her most powerful, in a godlike form that's even more powerful than a god. As the comic book puts it, quote, "She has been a god before, but at this moment, she's more. At this point, she has ascended past godhood and can see all of time and all realities. She sees every Earth's timeline, and she faces off against the Batman Who Laughs in his most powerful form. This fight is so intense that they literally hit each other through time itself. Diana here is also charged with anti-crisis energy, a connective force that links all history and all lives as one story. Then, she moves on to become one of the hands that creates the multiverse going forward, with no walls and greater possibilities. So she aids in creating the future state story, which we see in the next issues, and that was seemingly the centerpiece of DC 2021. So Wonder Woman becoming a god and remaking the universe sounds pretty immortal if you ask me. And at 4, Mr. Fantastic. In addition to the whole sliding timescale thing, which actually starts with him, making him immortal as well, Reed Richards' abilities also make him quite powerful. Mr. Fantastic possesses the ability to convert the mass of his entire body into a highly malleable state at will, which is what allows him to stretch. However, this also gives him the ability to absorb bullets and make himself more dense, basically all the reasons why Elongated Man would be immortal like I explained earlier. But the reason Reed has a leg up on Ralph is because of his son. Franklin Richards is one of, if not the most powerful being in the entire Marvel universe, even as an infant boy. This guy came to the present from the future and made Galactus his herald. Yeah, this dude made Galactus his And Mr. Fantastic's kid being somehow the most overpowered thing in the universe, there's no way that he would let his father die. If he wanted to, he could just like blink and his father would be resurrected. That's some Omega level shit. Like, he is like a Zeta level mutant, okay? It's insane. There's no way that this guy is dying. There's no way his dad is dying. I'll save Franklin Richards though for another list because I'm gonna need more numbers if there is one. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Batman. Batman is possibly immortal for the same reason that Spider-Man is, in a way. Well, at least like the whole popularity thing. Probably even more so because there is no way that they would kill off Batman in the main continuity. They may have other timelines or Earths where Batman dies, but never in the main continuity will they pull a move this big, okay? His plot armor is what makes him immortal. It doesn't matter if Batman has been a thing for over 80 years, he will always be young and immortal, at least in our world. And even if Bruce does die, someone takes over the Batman mantle, and people commonly see the one who takes over as the proper Batman, since the public doesn't know that Bruce being dead means that Batman is dead, but you know, whatever. Honestly, though, Batman would end up killing Death if the story needed it, and honestly, there would be no question in people's minds. They'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. In the comments of times Batman embarrassed his villains, everyone seems to agree with me that Batman's greatest power isn't his money or his courage, but instead the plot armor given to him because he's DC's biggest moneymaker. But ultimately, in at number 2, Sentry. Sentry is an absolute powerhouse, so it's no surprise that he's basically immortal, okay? Even like any threat this dude will take on. Sentry has even fought and beaten Ares, which is already impressive, but how he did it is even better. Sentry used to be a part of Norman Osborn's Avengers, who went to Asgard in an attempt to lay siege and claim it, because you know, it's Norman Osborn's Avengers. However, the Marvel version of the Greek god of war didn't like that idea, so after he learned of Osborn's intentions, he came down to kill the Green Goblin. But Ares did not anticipate the absolute powerhouse that is Sentry. Sentry's monster arms. He picked him up and tore him in half. Okay? Like, how the absolute living hell did this man tear a Greek god in half? He absolutely obliterated the god of war without breaking a sweat. And if that doesn't show you the sheer power of Sentry and how overpowered Marvel thinks that Superman is, then nothing will actually show you at this point. You're a lost cause. But yeah, I feel like that makes him immortal. And finally, in at number 1, The Flash. Technically speaking, the comic version of Barry Allen survived Crisis on Infinite Earths, despite everyone believing him to be dead, since he returned to the Speed Force after turning into the lightning bolt that gave him his powers to begin with. That's also an interesting story. But after transforming into pure lightning, traveling through time and space, and striking himself, Barry was sent back into the Speed Force, and later escapes and comes back into our world in the Flash Rebirth storyline. So technically, he survived the comic version of Crisis because he didn't die. Okay, he just transcended dimensions, which is a damn testament to how the Flash will never really die, okay? If he can have a very public and very impactful sacrifice to save literally all of reality and then just be brought back because he just went into the Speed Force like some sort of speedster Valhalla, it just makes me think that if any speedster dies, they'll just go into the Speed Force and then be able to be brought back. And in reality, every character is immortal if the writers want to bring them back for whatever reason. They will always find a way.
At number 10, we have Annihilus. Using the Cosmic Control Rod, Annihilus ameliorates his own well-being, spending most of his time trying to find ways to make himself, yes, immortal. The Rod is known to have almost limitless capabilities, so his efforts aren't in vain, as he has found ways to fend off disease, slowing down cellular degeneration, otherwise known as aging, and warding off heat and cold. He also uses it to fly super fast, which is another plus. The only reason why Annihilus is back at number 10 for me is that he seems to need the Cosmic Control Rod to achieve immortality. And even while he has it, he's known to be liable to make big mistakes due to his paranoia that others are going to try and snatch it from him. Remember kids, the real superpower is up here. Number 9 goes to Apocalypse. This villain, often facing off against the X-Men, originated in ancient Egypt, giving hints that he's capable of existing for hundreds of years at a time without meeting death. Yeah, so he's also known to have supreme control over his body from an atomic level, being capable of growing in size and density whenever he chooses, and adapting to his environment and fighting off disease. Not only that, but he's immune to aging again. So when Apocalypse was finally defeated by Cable, he wasn't actually killed and regenerated in a tomb in Aqaba. So there you have it. It seems like this guy will always be around. Our best bet is to keep him at bay for a while before he inevitably comes back, possibly repeating this process for eternity. Alright, at number 8 we have Mephisto, a demon creature who presents similarly to how humans view Satan. And yes, he did this to manipulate our singular views of evil through our tale of Satan the fallen angel. Regardless, Mephisto is known to be so powerful that he does not need food or water, or even oxygen to survive. He even has abilities to regenerate in the instances that he is damaged, going as far as regrowing limbs. And he can also see his own future if he so chooses. So even if something was coming his way that could somehow usurp his seemingly immortal powers, he would see it coming and put a stop to it before it could reach him. Mephisto proves to be a threat throughout the ages, and although he does face certain limitations to his powers and influence, this list isn't about power, but about immortality. So there you go.
Coming in at number 7, we have Ben Grimm, aka The Thing. As the physically strongest member of the Fantastic Four with an intimidating appearance to boot, the Thing is respected throughout the Marvel world for always having his family's back, and even being capable of standing up to someone as powerful as the Hulk when the need arises. Ben's change into a being made out of a mysterious rock-like substance also had some unexpected side effects, however, such as the fact that while in Thing form, he never ages. This is offset slightly by the fact that Ben is capable of appearing human for 1 day a year due to the tinkering of the rest of the Fantastic Four, but aging only 1 day a year extends your lifespan dramatically, and combine that with all of the near-death situations or universal collapses that the Fantastic Four have avoided together, and Ben Grimm definitely earns the title of being practically immortal. Coming in at number 6, we have the Incredible Hulk, aka Bruce Banner. Considering the Hulk's most popular and critically acclaimed series of the last decade was literally called The Immortal Hulk, obviously the big green guy earns a spot on this list. Built around the twist that the Incredible Hulk has always been immortal and that Bruce Banner first died during the original Gamma Bomb explosion and has been constantly resurrecting ever since, this series took the Hulk into a wild new body horror direction. With all Gamma-powered beings apparently being connected to the One Below All in a way that allows them to circumvent even the natural process of death, the Hulk is apparently a problem that can never be permanently solved. Coming in at number 5, we have Kevin Connor, aka Starbrand. Taking his name from the literal star brand he possesses, Kevin is one of the most powerful heroes to ever be called an Avenger, gaining his powers during an Earth-wide cosmic flash known as the White Event. Gaining the ability to control and manipulate energy at a scale only limited by his imagination, Starbrand is incredibly physically powerful and capable of healing any wound on both himself or any of his allies. Starbrand is so powerful that he's one of the few beings to ever kill a Beyonder, destroying one of the multiversal beings when the Marvel Universe was collapsing in a massive explosion, yet somehow reappearing unharmed once the Marvel Universe was restored. And if you can heal from an explosion at the end of all existence, I think you might be able to survive pretty much anything. Coming in at number 4, we have Thor Odinson, the God of Thunder. While several Marvel and DC superheroes have godlike powers, Thor is one of the very few that counts as a literal god. Having protected both Midgard and Asgard for thousands upon thousands of years, Thor has already had eons worth of adventures by the time we were introduced to the character in the comics. And according to all the storylines that feature an older All-Father Thor, he'll continue to outlive the rest of the Avengers by thousands and thousands of years more. With even the Norse apocalypse of Ragnarok focusing on the concept of renewal and rebirth, Thor is a heroic god that will likely never truly see a permanent end. Coming in at number 3, we have the notoriously durable Wolverine. When Wolverine was first introduced in the comics, his healing ability was just a quirk that made him a more intimidating warrior. Any cuts or bruises would just quickly become a non-issue to him. But as time went on and Wolverine became a more popular character, his healing abilities as a mutant became one of his most defining features, even more so than his iconic claws. Wolverine's healing abilities, combined with his indestructible adamantium skeleton, have been shown to be so great over the years that he's even been able to withstand the full force of a nuclear bomb, and getting his entire body ripped in half by the Ultimate Hulk. even in the few instances where someone has been able to officially kill Wolverine, he's somehow found his way back to the land of the living through time travel or magical means, ensuring that Wolverine will live on to fight another day. Coming in at number 2, we have the one and only Superman. Perhaps the most iconic superhero of all time, Superman is also where giant death of a hero events hit their peak, with the huge 90s cultural moment of the death of Superman. After a grueling multi-issue battle through the streets of Metropolis that saw Superman giving up his life to defeat the unstoppable killer Doomsday, it appeared that the Man of Steel was dead for good. However, after a long storyline that saw multiple imposter Supermen show up, Superman was shown to have not truly died, but merely been placed in Kryptonian stasis until he was able to be healed enough to resume being a superhero. Even after the beating of a lifetime from a complete monster, Superman remained unstoppable and has remained unkillable to this day. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the Venom symbiote. In a potential alternate future seen in the one-off story called Venom: The End, it was revealed that the most famous symbiote in the Marvel Universe has a longer shelf life than you'd expect. Keeping his host Eddie Brock alive for hundreds of years past a normal human lifespan, this story explores the symbiote finally letting go of its oldest friend and becoming the sole organic being left in a universe slowly dying to an artificial intelligence plague known as the God Mind. The symbiote wound up being the very last living thing before the universe was reset, showing that the most immortal creature in the Marvel Universe might just be a pile of black goo. No offense, Venom.
Number 10, Yara Flor. Yara Flor is destined to become the new Wonder Woman. At least that is what Future State would have us believe. For now though, in the Prime Earth continuity, she is just coming into her own and being introduced to us as a hero, figuring out as well what that means for her as our Wonder Girl. Yara herself, like Wonder Woman before her, is also a demigod. In Future State we learned that while her mother was a mortal woman, her father was a Brazilian river god. Yara is an Amazonian in two ways, being from the Amazon and also being an Amazon of the Amazons. She is not from Themyscira like Diana, but instead from the Amazonian rainforest. We've seen the potential of Yara via her appearance in Future State, but currently she is not at her full power levels just yet, as she doesn't have the same amount of experience as her future self. Like Diana, she is also a skilled combatant and has enhanced strength and speed due to her heritage. Number 9, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill isn't someone you'd initially think of when you think of Immortal, but he is down with the Immortals of Asgard, and so I think we can include him too. Also add in the fact that he is a cyborg, and you have a Beta Ray Bill that just won't quit, in most cases at least. In his Thor form, Beta Ray Bill becomes one of the toughest heroes around, not only known for his strength, but also his durability. He is immune to disease and sickness, and becomes pretty much immortal in that form. Being at the level of strength and capability when it comes to his power levels also makes him one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe, even though he might not be the one that you think of first. Still, I'm really happy I put Beta Ray Bill on this list because I feel like we never talk about him enough. Poor Bill. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, I have a lot more immortal, powerful heroes that I want to tell you about. So be sure to let us know you are loving it by giving this video a thumbs up. And shout out in the comments, be like part 2. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Number 8, Orion. Orion is one of the new gods and also the son of Darkseid. But just because his dad is one of the greatest villains of all time when it comes to the DC universe doesn't mean that he can't be a hero, which is ultimately what Orion is, preferring to fight on the side of good. Although this doesn't mean that he never has conflicts with other superheroes in the DC universe, because that does happen from time to time, with Orion arguing that his approach to heroism in certain cases is superior. Orion is an amazingly skilled fighter and leader who is known for his super strength, durability, and stamina. He also is immortal like his father, and because Darkseid has also been established as a constant in the DC universe, therefore invulnerable from ever being permanently defeated, we can discern that Orion likely has a similar thing going on, being descended from Darkseid as he is. Number 7, Witchcraft. Witchcraft is the goddess of witchcraft. As far as I know, she's only ever really appeared in the Scarlet Witch series, showing up there once. The goddess of witchcraft is, as she sounds she would be, the goddess of all magic and pretty much all magic users. Scarlet Witch sensed that something was wrong with magic and the goddess, and realized that witchcraft was basically being targeted by another abstract entity and god, Chaos. Chaos sought to destroy witchcraft and pretty much succeeded in the end, but Wanda's mother, Natalia Maximoff, Maximoff, also a powerful witch, sacrificed her own soul to bring back the goddess of witchcraft and to resurrect the powerful witch and Wanda's mentor, Agatha Harkness. Witchcraft is so cool, both the goddess and just like the whole world of it within Marvel. Such a cool idea. I need to go read more Scarlet Witch now. Excuse me. Number 6. Chthon. Chthon is the god of chaos, known for their attachment to the Scarlet Witch, aka Avenger Wanda Maximoff. Her powers of chaos have been tied to this god in the past, and at times, because of their ties, Chthon has even tried to break through into the earthly plane through her by attempting to possess her. Well, succeeding in possessing her and then basically having to be like defeated is more what happened. Chthon actually belongs to a group of earthen gods known as the Elder Gods. Why does that sound so spookily familiar? The Elder Gods? Chthon is actually believed to be the most powerful of all the Elder Gods actually. He has connections to dark magic and chaos magic and is not just a powerful god, but also an immensely powerful mystical force besides. Basically, just bad news. If Chthon shows up to the party, get out of there, it's gonna be chaos all over the place. Number 5. Volknar the Exhumer. Thanks to Eternals and Guardians of the Galaxy from the MCU, the Celestials have become a more common Marvel god group, something that you can throw around at a party with a bunch of people that, you know, haven't read all the comics and they'll be like, I know who the Celestials are. Sweet. The Celestials are the one who created the Eternals and, in essence, in the MCU, use them to birth new Celestials. Celestials are creators of life, but tragically, worlds kinda have to be sacrificed in the MCU in order to create Celestials and incubate them. Earth was at one point one of the worlds threatened by the birth of a new Celestial, but in the MCU, the Eternals banded together to prevent Earth's destruction, managing to turn the waking Celestial into marble before it could basically rise up. However, in the comics, the dark truth the Eternals learn is that in reality, the Celestials actually plan to cultivate and then harvest humanity and Earth to use in their battle against the corrupted Dark Celestials and the Horde, which threatened both the Celestials and basically the universe. Where the Celestials are inherently seen as neutral or sometimes a good force, the Dark Celestials are pure evil and really only seek to awaken the Horde and to just destroy stuff. Volknar the Exhumer was no exception and was a member of the final host of the Dark Celestials. Volknar, with the others of his group, attempted to attack and destroy Earth, but Iron Man banded together with the Avengers after learning the secrets of the Unimind, because at that point the Eternals were gone. Creating a Unimind and banding together with the Celestials, Earth was able to fight back and defeat Volknar and their brethren. Bye, Dark Celestials. Except not really, because, you know, Celestials are hard to destroy, but you can stop them if you try really hard and you believe and you create a Unimind. Number 4. Eternity. When it comes to the main comic book continuity of Earth 616, basically that's what Eternity is. Well, Eternity and his sister Infinity kind of. Together they embody the 616 universe. Eternity is also an abstract entity that represents time as well, making them pretty epically powerful. There are some that usurp them when it comes to their power levels, but those beings would usually be more on a multiversal level, on a whole other level of just powerful, because there's the universe and then there's the multiverse, baby. Eternity has been stated to be above all other abstract entities in the 616 universe, including Mistress Death, Master Order, and Lord Chaos. Within the realm of 616, there is almost no power too great for them to possess as the embodiment of that universe. They can easily manipulate it and bend it to their will as they see fit. Because, I mean, they are it, so yeah. Number 3, the Living Tribunal. The Living Tribunal basically represents the justice of the multiverse. They are one of the most powerful beings and entities in the entire multiverse, though obviously aren't at the top of the food chain when it comes to our most powerful but lesser known gods of the Marvel Universe and multiverse. The Living Tribunal only has one form, but is in essence a constant and can exist across multiple realities at the same time. However, any alternates seen in this way are really just one entity, therefore not alternates, because the Living Tribunal is able to be at multiple places at once. As I said, they can exist, there can be multiple versions, but it's really just one. You know what I mean? It's an OP trait. I would love to be able to do that, to just have me and be at as I am, but then have multiple versions of me across realities. Think of how much work I could get done. The Living Tribunal, in essence, represents the Marvel multiverse and exists to uphold its integrity and stability, working as the force of justice within the multiverse. The Living Tribunal also has power levels that are off the charts, and at one point a version of Adam Warlock took the place of this powerful entity after the Living Tribunal died, becoming the new Living Tribunal. Adam Warlock, Living Tribunal, here to do the job. There are lots of Adam Warlocks across the multiverse. Number 2, the one below all. I mean, it's really hard to say between these top 2 points who's really the more powerful between them, because they're kind of like different sides of the same coin. But this is what I decided to go with. If you disagree, you can let me know in the comments. I'm cool with that. We can have a debate. It'll be fun. I'm definitely giving away my number 1 spot, by the way, if you are deep in the god mythos of Marvel. But if you are, good for you. And also, thanks for still watching this video just to see what little old me thinks about these gods and their rankings. I think you're neat. The one below all is basically the real Satan or devil of the Marvel Universe. I know that Mephisto, Azazel, and Damon Hellstrom's father have all kind of claimed to be like the one and only devil, but really that title most truly belongs to the one below all. They are the dark side of the multiverse's creator, and as such are also an all-powerful, omnipotent, omniscient, multiversal entity and being. Although where the other half is more broad when it comes to, their focus, the one below all is pretty niche. They basically rule over gamma mutates, being the source of mutagenic gamma energy, which is still super cool. It's just that's kind of more their focus. They can possess and overtake gamma-powered or mutated individuals and bend them to their will, making them not just powerful, but also a pretty scary entity overall. And if you want to learn more about that, you can check it out in Immortal Hulk, which if you haven't read it, you should read it because it's the best thing since sliced bread. Number 1, the one above all. The one above all is so powerful they don't even have their own designated universe. Instead, they exist in all of the universes, being a multiversal entity and constant. And yes, if you haven't already guessed, they are the other side of the coin when it comes to the one below all. In essence, the one above all is like the god of the Marvel comic book multiverse. They are the creator of all things, and despite the existence of many other gods and immortal constants, both good and bad, they exist pretty much above them all. The one true power of the multiverse. They are seen to be an omnipotent and omniscient being who can do all and see all. It is believed that everything that exists in the multiverse was in fact ultimately created by them. Out of respect for the 2 major creative forces that started it all, the one above all has at times appeared to resemble both Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, often considered Marvel's founding fathers, which I think is also super sweet and appropriate. Who would the one below all though be? Who's like the Satan of Marvel?